Another thing I want my audience to understand about me, I I'm not a drug user. I've been sober for quite a while. At this point, I was never actually addicted to anything I did take in the past for recreational purposes. Haven't used that stuff in years at this point. So when I say all this stuff about prohibition and prohibition policies, I mean I just think that the United States is not a country that is engaged in sane policies when it comes to prohibition, and I think that the parties of Western Europe have had sanity has prevailed in Europe, and that it has not prevailed here in the United States. My frustration is not as a drug user myself. I mean, I've got no interest in taking any of that stuff, and methods can stay far the fuck away from me, please. I don't want anything to fucking do with you in your lives. You people are thieves, basically. I have really no, a meth addict will steal from you and then come over to your house and help you find the stuff that he knows you don't steal. That it's that bad as far as that stuff's concerned. And I can't help but look though at the idea that prohibition is just making things worse. I mean, think about the economics of everything. I mean, you can't win it on the supply side of the equation because it doesn't matter what the cost. People are going to find a way to produce it. And, if they stamp out its production in the United States, it will move south of the border into South America and then just be, penetrated our borders. And then, and the thing is, the guys that are penetrating our borders, the bad hombres, like their entire livelihoods depend on being able to fool the U.S. The U.S. The Mounties and the people that are doing border enforcement. I mean, their livelihoods depend on the ability to get that stuff to the United States, and so they become veterinized at penetrating, our systems and getting their junk through. And so some of it gets caught, but most of it manages to get through. And hence my extraordinary frustration with all this. I mean, really, when LE will make a blog, like a post or a blog that says that they've caught some narco sub, your response to that shouldn't be celebration. It should be more horror, because all that really does is it boosts the price. And the people, what we know about addicts is that we do whatever it takes to get their junk, basically, which means that when you raise the price, people respond by stealing more than they would ordinarily in order to keep sustaining their habits. And so every time the police bust a narco sub and thus boost the price of narcos in the United States, you can expect more break-ins as an unintended consequence of the bust. That's the reality of the situation. They might not intend it, but that's what's going to happen despite their best intentions as a result. The road to hell in this battle has always been paved in good intentions. There was a literal truth to that statement, and it's a reality. It may not be a politically popular reality, and truth might not be popular, but this is nevertheless the truth. You are fighting an unwinnable battle. That's my concern. I mean, why should we as taxpayers be expected to contribute to fund a system that's engaged in a war that's just really at the end of the day only making things worse? Because when it comes to, I know that I seem a little bit crazy, but to explain the view that I take, and the scientific community takes on like opium, for instance, what the problem with opium is that there are these unscrupulous drug dealers that are basically selling it to people, and when they make that stuff, there are horrifying impurities in the stuff that they make, and there's often no ability to predict like dosage, and how pure things are, and purity. All these factors can be obscured, and you won't actually exactly know what exactly you're taking when you're taking it, which is not like when you get prescribed pharmaceutical grade stuff that's cut through regulations and it's created, through a process of regulations that ensure that you get the greatest possible purity from other substances that may be mixed in with whatever drug it is that you're actually taking, and that's the whole problem. I mean, when the black market gets control of it, they don't even bother trying to make it the drug as safe as possible. They just try to make it to sell it to somebody. And so when you know we can like we already can see the unintended consequences of this, with opium manifesting in Russia, where a systematic effort to control opium by all the governments in the world has only resulted in using more and more dangerous chemicals to actually produce the stuff until you ended up with crocodile, which causes people's limbs and or their body parts to fall off over time and necrotizes them. Yeah, the people that are take it don't usually survive more than 2 years. That's an unintended consequence of the drug war. That's what fighting a war does, in the drug space. They might not intend this to happen, but it's what you're seeing a preview of it, and it's been out in a couple of publications. I forget where I first became aware of crocodile, but it's horrifying. It necrotizes the addicts and just their, their body, like it kills where the injection sites are, and it's just it's terrible. And you know, you can thank your politicians because they thought that fighting a war and the creatives that went out to control the chemicals that were needed to produce and control the opium poppy supply and everything else and all this burning that they did in Afghanistan and all over the place for the world we now live in. So yeah, all that prohibition does is make the prohibited substance more dangerous, and people still use it, and the police kick in the door every so often, but every time they do, the addicts just go and steal more shit to face the new reality, and their junkies get their smack, and that's just how it goes, on and on and on. So we go through it, and I know that that represents a lot of pain for the United States, but it's just like we the way that we have fought this battle has been incoherent because pharmaceutical grade opium would have, if the doctors had just been prescribing it to their addicted patients and just enabling their habit and maintaining, you know, their patient and that whole, process, what would have happened is that people could have lived ordinary, productive lives rather than. So what you saw happen in the opium space is literally there's one market for people that are able to get legal access to it, and those people are fine. And then there's the black market where people are able to get the legal version of it, and those people's lives are falling apart. Why should one be safe while the other is, condemned to, a life of misery? None of it makes sense.